Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on a really pivotal moment in the history of the Unification Church.
Hmm.
A compelling and I mean very intense 1977 address by Reverend Sun Young Moon titled "Let Us Meet Opportunity Well."
And this isn't just, some old document from an archive. It's really a blueprint for absolute commitment.
Right.
We're looking at a specific day, January 2nd, 1977, which was this total flashpoint. The American movement was under, well, immense public scrutiny.
Okay.
So this speech is a concentrated lesson on what trust is, the nature of sacrifice, and just the level of commitment needed to do something huge when you're under pressure.
So our mission today for you listening is to really unpack the extreme expectations that are laid out in this address. We'll start with the speaker's profound, almost pessimistic views on human trust.
And this impossible standard he sets for an absolute saint.
Exactly. Then we'll get into the paradox of the spiritual guide,
Yeah.
why he felt he couldn't be trusted 100%, but at the same time, absolute submission was required.
It's a fascinating contradiction.
And finally, we'll dive into the specific, really high-stakes mandate from 1977, looking at what he called the Apollo 11 demands for sacrifice during this most critical showdown.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the address's philosophical core. The speaker opens with this very stark reminder that life is fragile.
Acutely fragile, yeah. He emphasizes how just one event, a single statement, one mistake, even the wrong friend, can either totally ruin you or bring you complete success.
So it's all about being incredibly cautious.
Intensely cautious
Yeah.
about what you listen to, what you say, what you do.
And he says this isn't unique to any one culture, right?
No, not at all. He argues it's a universal philosophy of life, true in the East and the West. But what's really striking is his diagnosis of human nature. He basically sees us as inherently unstable under pressure.
So how does he define that instability?
He says when people get into trouble, when their chips are really down, they become completely self-engrossed.
Hmm.
They have no time to think about other people. They're just, too busy trying to solve their own crisis. And in that state, he says, they might say things that aren't true or even take advantage of loyal friends.
Wow. So difficulty doesn't build character in this view. It reveals all the flaws.
It reveals the flaws, and that leads to this massive disappointment. He talks about this tragedy of life where people are constantly let down by those they trust the most.
Even family?
A friend, a sibling, even a parent. He basically concludes that finding someone truly trustworthy in the human world is just extremely rare.
Okay, so if human trust is that unreliable, who do you look to? That kind of sets the stage perfectly for this search for the saint.
It does. And he defines a saint not just as a morally good person, but as someone who lives with this noble, unchanging purpose, a cause that's bigger than them.
And they don't waver.
They don't waver. But even that standard, he says, isn't quite high enough.
Which brings us to this problem he identifies: competition. He even questions if two great saints or scholars could ever really achieve unity.
Right. He makes this, I think, maybe cynical point that prominent people, even highly educated ones, can be, and this is his phrase, very narrow-minded.
Pushing your own claims first.
Yeah, exactly. They compete, they undermine the group's purpose, and if they can't unite, well, they definitely don't meet this standard of absolute trust.
So, if the human saint fails the test, what are the qualifications for the absolute saint? This is where the standard becomes almost mythological.
It really does. The source says the absolute saint has to be totally uncontaminated by human weaknesses. This is a figure who would never, ever betray you, no matter what.
But it's more than just not betraying you, isn't it? It goes further.
Oh, way further. It requires active sacrifice for your enemies.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the revolutionary part he highlights. The absolute saint has to be willing to give his life for his enemies and still have enough love to bless them at the very moment of his own death.
So moving way beyond an eye for an eye.
Far beyond it. He's talking about love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you.
And according to this address, only one person in history actually fits this description.
He identifies Jesus Christ as the only one who manifested that absolute standard. And that leads to the final point. Since all of humanity is conditional, the only being in the entire universe you could fully trust is God.
The only 100% reliable one.
Exactly. Because God's actions are always for the believer's benefit, never his own. And, key point, God keeps his promises, even if it takes, thousands of years.
Which is a kind of trust that completely transcends the human scale.
And that establishes the backdrop before he talks about his own role.
Okay, let's transition there to the core paradox of the guide. This part is surprisingly frank. Reverend Moon admits directly, and I'm quoting here, "You cannot even trust me 100%. I have human weaknesses."
I mean, that's a stunning admission.
It is. So why admit that? Why say you're fallible?
He's making a very deliberate distinction between the source and the conduit. He's saying, look, my mortal body is only here for one generation. My goal is to connect you to God, who is 100% trustworthy and eternal.
So focus on the source, not the messenger.
Exactly. But that creates a problem, doesn't it?
Yeah, a huge one. If the message is coming through a flawed man, how do you handle the potential for error?
And his answer is absolute submission to the guidance, even when it seems completely counterintuitive. He claims his teachings aren't his own thoughts, but God's.
Right.
And he warns that God might order things absolutely contrary to your own thinking, and that accepting this 100% is the only way to avoid the road of destruction.
That feels like an impossible hurdle. Why would rejecting the teaching be so devastating?
Because he argues it's not defiance against him. His position, he says, is already fixed. If you reject the direction, you're the one who loses out on the benefit.
So you're defying yourself, essentially.
Your own self, your own posterity, your country, the world, the stakes are cosmic.
And this is where we get to the can't lose challenge, because if defiance is a guaranteed loss, he offers this incredible guarantee of success, even if you were lying.
It's maybe the most revolutionary part of the whole address. He lays out a hypothetical. He says, okay, suppose I'm telling you lies,
Right.
but you take those lies as God's word and you fulfill them 100% with total sincerity. What happens?
What is the outcome he predicts?
He argues God would condemn him for spreading lies, but you, the follower, would be completely blessed because you acted with 100% sincerity in what you believed was God's will.
So God can't punish your intention.
Cannot punish the intention.
Yeah.
And even more, he claims that sincerity would allow you to become the real Reverend Moon. You'd achieve that spiritual status yourself.
That just reframes the entire mission. The internal action becomes more important than the external instruction.
It does. It basically removes your ability to hesitate because of skepticism. Your success is guaranteed by your own effort, regardless of the guide's mortal failings. Sincerity is the ultimate shield.
Let's pivot now to the high-stakes environment of 1977. This wasn't some theoretical talk. He called it the most critical showdown. What was going on?
Yeah, the context is everything. By January 77, the church was facing massive pressure in the U.S. from the government, from the public.
There were negative media campaigns, congressional investigations.
Absolutely. The Fraser Committee investigation was in full swing. The organization was literally fighting for its reputation and its right to exist on American soil.
So this was about immediate survival, not just some distant goal.
For sure. He framed this moment as an opportunity knocking, but one that required them to shoot straight upward. And he uses that dramatic
You
analogy.
should call 11.
The Apollo 11, 1,000,000 pounds of engine thrust. It's an all-or-nothing single-shot mission. No second chances, no time to build up slowly.
It's an incredible image.
It is, and it leads right into the sacrifices required. And he's very realistic about it.
He is. He says, nobody wants to get up at 4:30 in the morning for pledge service.
Or sell peanuts and flowers. He's talking about the mobile fundraising teams, the MFTs. He acknowledges that nobody wants to be a slave of Reverend Moon, but they do it because they have to.
Because the mission is everything. It's not optional. It's mandatory engine thrust.
Right. And he compares that mental focus to an Olympic marathon runner.
What's the key part of that focus?
Tunnel vision. Absolute concentration. He says Olympic winners aren't thinking about their date or their vacation. The mantra has to be nothing but victory. Nothing but victory. Any distraction is a drain on that thrust.
Now let's get into the specific challenge he gives to the Americans in the room. This part has some very direct comparisons.
Very direct. He says he's proud to have the elite of American society in the church, but then he uses this powerful analogy of horses.
He calls America a championship horse.
And Japan a little pony.
Or football.
It's a loaded comparison, especially for a global movement.
Why do that? Why elevate America to that status?
It creates immense pressure, immense expectation. He's handing them the leadership mantle. But then he immediately critiques them, reminding them that America backed down from commitments before and disillusioned other nations.
So it's a test of redemption.
Precisely. He asks them straight up, will you disappoint me? Are you going to be different Americans? The championship horse has to prove it can run the whole race.
And that vigilance extends into every single daily interaction.
To an extreme degree. He says followers have to be alert 24 hours a day.
So alert, they should even ask God to watch for them when they go to the bathroom.
It's literal. That's the level of alertness required. because the mission is to find the person who might become president in 30 years or the person who will guide the free world.
And that person could be anywhere.
A hamburger shop, a hospital, on the street. You can't judge by appearances. Every single interaction is potentially world-changing.
To really drive this home, he uses a powerful anecdote.
Yeah, about an early member who left and called him a fool when he was in jail.
Sure.
The man thought he was being clever.
And 20 years later,
The smart man was ruined, while the speaker was being raised up as a worldwide figure. The lesson is clear. If you think you're too clever for the hard path, you're destined for regret.
and he says the same history will repeat in America.
Exactly. He predicts the clever and ambitious ones who leave will come back years later, begging for a minor job. The secret to success, he says, is absolutely trying to enforce his will.
And then finally, he throws down this direct challenge to the men in the audience.
Yeah, this part is amazing. He specifically points out that the women are the exemplary heroic workers
He quotes the MFT leaders from Japan.
who requested more sisters because, and this is a direct quote, the men don't produce so much.
Wow.
He predicts the women will achieve victory first, and he challenges the men to admit they've been inferior and to surpass the women's performance. It's an explicit call to raise their game.
So this whole speech, it just boils down to a fierce, unrelenting demand for absolute commitment. The message is that opportunity requires you to go all the way.
Hesitation is failure. The only path forward is to take the initiative and go.
And the ultimate reward for all this isn't just success, it's cosmic vindication.
It is. He ends with this vision of the church van, the one used 24/7 for fundraising, ending up in the Museum of Heaven and Earth. It's a symbol that all that sacrifice in the trenches isn't forgotten. It's honored forever by God.
So as we close, let's circle back to that central paradox we talked about. You heard the speaker say that even if he's lying, you cannot lose if you sincerely live the teaching 100%. If your sincerity absolves you of all guilt and guarantees a blessing, no matter the objective truth of the instruction, what does that imply about divine judgment versus personal intention? If your dedicated effort is enough to guarantee success, does the source of the instruction even matter at all? That's something powerful for you to consider as you meet your next opportunity.